So there, I've seen you wear a number of T-shirts. I mean, my T-shirts are always, stupid, typically just T-shirts. But this one, I don't understand. So, University of Massachusetts, I would imagine lacrosse. Where did you get that?
UMass. I didn't play lax anywhere. Let's just be clear. I mean, I can talk a good game, yard sale, cut in the box, all that stuff. But I don't know where I got this shirt. I think I have a friend. In fact, I think it had something to do with. There was a bunch of dudes from UMass who came down to watch the show. I think somebody gave me this shirt once. They were like, "Thanks, here's a UMass."
All right, no, that works.
And so that's a decent,
legit as anything.
Well, it's a legit excuse, but you have no excuse. I mean, what are you wearing? I mean, seriously.
I'll tell you. Hold on, I'll just sort of stand up here. I don't know if you can read that.
The Urban Professionals Basketball League.
Right. So I would say this is circa. I always love the circa thing. 88-ish.
Yeah.
So I'm probably 24 years old, going to be 25, and we joined this basketball league in New York City, which plays at basically any gym they can find at any school. That's where you play. So you go to some really obscure places, but there are probably about 25 different levels of this league. The highest level being dudes that actually played Division I ball all the way down to hacks. And
were they Wall Street guys, or did you have to
a lot of Wall Street guys? But no, but guys all over the place. And there was some decent. I tell you what, there were some decent hoop games, and we had about 7 of us on the team. So you had to be able to run, man.
Were you just like taking up some space in the lane? Were you clogging things up? What were you doing, guys?
I know this is going to be hard for you to believe.
Pick and roll, set shots.
I actually had a decent game. It was myself, a couple buddies, one of my brothers played, and we'd go. We did pretty well. Now, the best thing about basketball, listen, for meatheads like me, I generally only like playing basketball against people I know.
Why?
Because my game is like I like to bang the shit out of people. Like I enjoy watching people crumble.
I mean, I think you're kind of like that bruising guy in the lane. Like you're gonna earn your dish.
No doubt.
So.
But when you're playing against guys you don't know, a lot of times, they typically don't respond well to that type of stuff. And I'm not looking, I wasn't looking to get into it because you had to go to work the next day.
You were part of the Croton Hoods. So, I mean, you guys, you weren't afraid. Look, what worked in the schoolyards worked on the basketball courts. And by the way, it works on Wall Street. So there's probably a message here.
Now, who's probably wasn't a great basketball player was Chuck Schumer. Maybe back in the day, I don't know. Chuck, but he's big in your world right now. I mean, Chuck is laying down some groundwork for Tim Seymour and everything that you've been working on for the last couple of years to really start to take off.
So for the urban professionals out there, the Chuck Schumer reference is the Schumer bill around cannabis federalization, everything from legalizing and descheduling on the federal level. So cannabis right now is considered a controlled substance, right up there with heroin and other things, which is absurd. But the bigger dynamics here are getting some of the other regulatory agencies involved and figuring out not only what the FDA does here, but ultimately, how you handle interstate commerce, how you handle some really important issues. Because right now, cannabis is legal state by state, depending on where you live. You have a medical market, you have an adult market, or you may have neither. But that there are still there's lack of any federal policy on this, which makes it really difficult for the companies. Although, for some of the biggest and most successful cannabis companies so far, the status quo is actually, I think, a good thing for them, which means it keeps out larger players. It keeps out other more established, frankly, CPG companies, consumer packaged goods. And it gives you a sense that these companies are going to be able to establish a much deeper business, bigger moat around their business before you get some of the monsters of consumer products. Or tobacco companies, alcohol companies, pharma companies. So is this headline that investors are seeing today good for investing in the sector? And the answer is ultimately any federal progress, and it tells you how far the industry's come, used to be considered a major positive. And obviously, a lot of the catalysts to investing in cannabis have been around it. But the bottom-up story, company by company, I think is a little bit more why investors need to think about it. But I think, look, this headline is exciting because at some point it tells you where the federal government recognizes they need to have a coherent policy on this. And really, this is a bipartisan issue. I do think Schumer's bill is asking for much more than he should be asking for here. In other words, he's put together a very comprehensive, far-reaching bill that he's not going to get through. So for cannabis investors, this is a little bit of a head fake, and it's a little bit frustrating because there are victories I think Senate Democrats could push through with their majority that would also get Republicans on board and ultimately are good for the sector. So I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. No, and you're right. I mean, he asked for a lot, and hopefully things become bipartisan. I'll tell you what else is bipartisan. I don't know, maybe I missed it last night, but there were no were anybody from the Houston Astros at that game last night on the field? Because I didn't see anybody.
Don't they
maybe I missed it.
I think they have to have a guy from every team, right? So
look, maybe it just slipped under my. But it was interesting though that I don't know. I mean, let's put it this way: they were conspicuous by their absence. Number one, number two, the uniforms, as you mentioned on Twitter,
atrocious,
it's reprehensible, atrocious. It's just.
I think
I've
used the word appalling, but I don't understand it. Like the magic of the All-Star game was when you got to see the I don't, what color green is that in Oakland? What would you call that? A forest? What is that? Is that a
whatever
hunter?
It was? And sometimes guys had 2 or 3. Like I remember the team pictures where there'd be 7 guys from the A's in 3 different uniforms.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is great. I mean, that's what you were longing for. Now these bullshit, homogenous, ugly ass uniforms. It's just
very ugly. And again, this isn't like the U.S. Olympic hockey team where they all have to have like some kind of like what ends up being like an American jersey. How about the local teams? How about seeing a Baltimore Orioles jersey, one of the great uniforms in sports, by the way, Baltimore Orioles and the Oakland A's, I think, and then throw in a Milwaukee Brewers.
Sure.
And you've got the right, both artistic and most importantly, the mix that gets the young kids excited. They see their guys out there mixing with, I actually, it's, in a world where, and this is even back to the cannabis space, where, the differences between us sometimes have defined the differences in how people are treated and how policy is created. I think that the differences between the ball players and the teams is what makes us all wonderful. And it's what makes the game wonderful. So how about that for a bigger life metaphor? But if they screwed it up.
I happen to know that Rob Manfred is a commercial break fan, and maybe he'll think twice next year. I mean, go back to what made it so unique. Let's get back, and where you can see the most iconic uniform in the history of sports, the Yankee pinstripes. And next year in American League Park, for people that don't get a chance to see it, I mean, that's magic. That is magic, Tim.
Did everybody make it back from Colorado in one piece last night on the Yankees?
We're going to find out. We're going to find out tomorrow when they play their arch enemy Red Sox in a critical 4-game set in mid-July.
Okay, well, we're going to find out really what the legislation that's coming from D.C. is on the cannabis front. As folks know, I run an ETF in the space, and I wasn't necessarily looking for a headline to go out and add to exposure. In fact, I think investors that are looking to invest over the long term are going to find incredible growth opportunities. What's ultimately going to be one of the most sophisticated consumer packaged goods stories. But those headlines out of Schumer, my guess is you would have a better time backing Chuck into the lane and then really going up for an easy lay-in than he will getting this bill passed through the Senate.
Agreed. Talk to you tomorrow.
See you later.